Okay, there we are. So today is October 30th, 2025, and we're delighted to have Margie, how do you say her last name? Strohecker,
Strohecker. So,
here for an IAPC Oral History interview, and Megan will be joining us shortly. You were just reminiscing a little bit about Matt Lipman at Mendham.
yes. Yeah, I think it had been going, the Mendham meetings had been going on for a few years. We came in summer of 1981,
Hmm.
and I think those meetings had been happening in the winter meeting and the summer institute had been happening for at least a couple of years before our class came in. Um, I'm not sure. You probably have better record of that. Um, Yeah, I want to make sure that we address any questions that you have that I might be able to shed any light on because I don't know how informative talking with me will be, but this is the most important thing I've ever been involved in my life,
Hmm.
and to have stepped away from it for so many years is it's just hard to find a way to have it be your 24/7
Hmm.
occupation.
Hmm. Yeah, which Matt did. Well, maybe we could just start with tell us how you got it. How did you find out about philosophy for children? How did you get involved?
So I was majoring in philosophy, undergraduate at Loyola College in Baltimore. And I had a professor who was very excited about finding Harry Stottlemyre's discovery. We were studying genetic epistemology and talking about Piaget and reading some of the interviews that Piaget had with young boys,
Hmm.
which was very intriguing. And he
Yeah.
showed us some of the discussion plans from Harry Stottlemyre's discovery,
Hmm.
about what makes you you and what is thinking and so on. It was just very exciting to, I think a lot of us come to philosophy, we find it and we realize that these are the questions we asked when we were kids, and people didn't necessarily engage us. And
Hmm.
it's a home where everyone is encouraging you to talk in a way that you might have been discouraged to talk before. So, to find that connection in college, to make a connection between the academic studies and the whole reason why I
Hmm.
found philosophy important and intriguing was very exciting to me. And that was in the spring of 1970, no, 1980.
Hmm.
So the MAT program wasn't actually accredited or certified or whatever until a couple of weeks before we started. In
Oh,
fact,
wow.
when I came for my interview on March 6th of 1981,
Hmm. Wow.
um, I just remember that it was snowing and Anne and Matt were in the trailer. Anne was wearing sandals in the snow.
Sounds about right.
Um, Yeah, at that time, they were kind of announcing, I saw an announcement through my professor about this graduate program, but
Hmm.
it couldn't apply officially for it yet.
Hmm.
And we couldn't get any kind of funding for it because it was supposed to start in June. This was March. And I think it finally came through at the end of May,
Hmm.
was, a program that you could matriculate in.
Hmm.
And so I think I graduated college, and 2 weeks later, I was at the IAPC in the
Wow.
graduate program. There were four of us in that class. Brenda Richardson, who was studying at Berea with
Hmm.
Fred Gagnon,
Yeah.
and that's how she came to philosophy for children. Richard Piscopo, who was local in New Jersey, and Elizabeth Liz Lyle, who found a flyer on the ground. She can tell you her own story. I think she found a flyer on the ground at San Francisco State and said, "Me,
Wow.
that's me." So, yeah, so even though we came to start a graduate program that summer, there were many other professors. I think they were considering that their summer institute. I don't know if they had a separate Mendham Institute that summer, but it was 4 weeks of a residential program. And
Hmm.
these other professors and the four students lived on campus. I think I lived in something called Bone Hall.
Yep, it's still there.
Yeah. Uh, so we met for a month. So the graduate program was 4 semesters. It was 2 summers, bookending an academic year.
Hmm.
Um, and So I'm rambling along, but that's how I
Oh,
found.
that's great. It was 4 weeks
Maybe it was six. I think
summer.
it was 6 weeks. I think it was six
Oh,
weeks.
wow.
Um,
And the classes were held on campus.
they were held on campus
Yeah.
in a seminar room.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Do
yeah, I'm
you
trying.
remember what the coursework was like?
So that first summer, we primarily did the kind of work that you do in Mendham, where
Mm,
we were, introduced to the various programs and we had a chance to participate and then to practice.
mhm,
But we did have some theoretical underpinnings in the summer, some readings and a couple of papers to write. I'm somewhere I have documentation of all of this. You mentioned whether I had documentation. I went through
ah,
a bunch of boxes. I have all kinds of
wow.
all kinds of old pamphlets and summaries and this little fastback from Tony.
Oh, yeah, I have seen that one.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
a whole bunch of those where I saved one copy of each. I don't know.
Fantastic.
You probably have all of that, and it may not be necessary to
I
keep
don't
it.
know, but I would love to find out. Thank you.
Yeah. So that was I probably have more details about the coursework
Sure.
that summer, but mostly it was a lot of practice. We did a lot of practicing. The other professors who were there were our coaches, as we
Mm,
sometimes did at Mendham.
mhm,
So we spent a good bit of time with various different professors. Fred Ascanyon was there in residence with us that summer. Um,
nice.
Satish, I think his name is Telegar Satish,
Mm,
was there. Not sure if any of the names.
I don't.
Maybe David Kennedy. I'm not sure. Um, so that's what we did in the summer, and then in the fall we did student teaching in Totowa, New Jersey.
Mm,
It was very unclear how we would get some kind of certification. We had to
yeah,
have a certification to have an MAT.
mhm,
I had an undergraduate philosophy and math, so I was teaching math and philosophy in total. And I think the other three had come from an English literature background, and they were student teaching in English and in philosophy. So
mm,
Totowa just had two schools at that time, an elementary and a middle school, didn't even have a high school.
mm.
So I did Pixie in grades 3 and 4, and I did math in grade 8.
Wow.
Or no, I did Pixie in grade 4, Harry in grade 5, and math in grade 8.
Mm.
Um,
So you didn't have coursework during the academic year?
We did. We had
Oh,
a
you
lot of
did.
coursework during the
Oh,
academic
okay.
year. I know we had advanced ed psych. I know we did sociology, studying Durkheim, and
Okay.
um,
Like ed theory courses,
yeah, we had theory courses. We
education
had a
theory.
seminar and education theory course because we didn't I don't think we student taught every day. I think that we had Fridays. And the
Mhm,
first semester there were professors who came from the larger, greater New York area. We had somebody from Queens College. I think there were more professors than there were students. And at
mm.
first we had to negotiate space for us to get a word in edgewise. So so that it would become our class. So we
Yeah,
advocated for it to be more our class than
good
theirs.
for you.
Um, and then in the second semester, we did student teaching on Fridays in Harlem.
Mm,
And I don't know the number of the school. I think it was between Lenox and Fifth, and I don't even know the map of New York to know if that's even a location.
yeah.
But it was an elementary school, and that was a really interesting experience. There was anyway, I think that continued the next year. Um, I'm not sure if that was a regular part of the MAT degree. So we had a very different experience in Totowa and in Harlem. It was a good balance to have an urban school district and to have this tiny school district in New Jersey. And of course, there was a lot more. The primary activity in philosophy for children in the country was New Jersey. I mean, Matt had established strong partnerships in Newark and what is the Wantagh School. Wait, what is the Wabash School? Or anyway, there's a school where they did a lot of their testing, pre and post testing,
Oh,
and
right. Yeah. Yeah.
right there in New Jersey.
Hmm.
So anyway, so if you want to know about coursework, I think I can probably dig out some of that stuff and have specifics.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
But in that second semester, and then we stayed on in the summertime to do another month, and that was a lot more theory. And we wrote our comps. We had comprehensives, and
Oh, okay.
which we wrote in the trailer, the four of us with Matt and Ann. Um, do you want me to talk more about the program or the people or where?
Yeah, both. I was going to ask, I know that Matt, and I think Anne helped him put together what they called sources and references for each of the programs. So like for each of the chapters of each of the novels, of like philosophical sources that he had drawn on in writing that. And I later on in the program, I know that a lot of the master's courses were that, where you were like read a chapter of Pixie and then look at the sources and references and write something. Did you do that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We did. Um, yeah, there was a lot of weekly writing and a couple of seminars a week while we were student teaching.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me just see. Megan says she'll be here. Oh no, she's not able to. She had the time mixed up, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, well, I'd like to meet her some other time,
Very
hopefully.
well.
And is Megan a colleague at Montclair State?
She was. She came here from Australia, where she had done philosophy for children there. And she joined us at Montclair State, and then she got hired off by Teachers College at Columbia.
Oh, wonder. Well,
So we're yeah,
for
it was great for her, and so we're so now we collaborate with her there. So it's good.
oh, that's great. I remember Lawrence Splitter was
Yes,
one of the primary contacts even back then in Australia.
yes, yeah, yeah. She studied with him, and they're still very close friends. I'm a good friend of his too.
Well, that's
Nice.
good. That's good to
Yeah.
hear.
Do you so yeah, maybe talk about the people. That'd be nice.
Okay, so I think anytime we would meet someone new in philosophy for children, the first question would be, "How did you meet Anne Sharp?" Because that was always a good story. It was always,
Yes, yes. Colorful stories.
colorful stories. But really, Anne was the heart of the, well, I mean, Matt and Anne together, what Anne brought besides her academics and her contributions to the writing and the creativity, and her home was the center of everything. I mean, we all lived at her house at various points in time.
Mhm.
Professors stayed there. Any visiting professor was going to stay at Anne's house. She would send us from a seminar and say, go start dinner. One of us would just go over. We knew where everything was. We knew what the dinner was going to be.
Mhm.
Um, and we used her car, and she didn't even live in her house anymore. She was living with Phil somewhere else in Montclair. So it was just a very important to have a home base that wasn't the trailer, that wasn't the
Mhm.
office. And
Yeah.
a lot of exchanges happened there and a lot of socializing that was important. There were a lot of teachers from Brazil, other places in South America who would come. And then there would be, evening soirees, there would be singing, there would be, and all of that was important. That there was a home and a commonality
Mm.
established for everyone. That was right in Montclair. Anne had a lot of ideas about a lot of hope and optimism about things that were going to happen. Every week, we were going to be sent to Africa the next year. We were going to be in Australia. We're going to send you to Hawaii. We're going to, because she really was trying to develop contacts in all those places. And there were people who were interested. There wasn't money, but there were people
Right.
who wanted things to happen. So there was a lot of uncertainty that year about whether any of us would be able to do philosophy for children after that year in any way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but we did. I mean, I don't know if I've told you, I went on to work in Lynbrook Public Schools on Long Island, and they had already established, they got a big grant and established a program from grades 3 through 5 the
Hmm.
first year. And they had Michael Wally, who was a PhD from England, who was their residential philosopher. and did training with teachers there the year before, but they wanted to have a more comprehensive program. He left. They wanted to have grades 3 through 7. And so I was only 23 years old, and I was brought on to train 30 teachers,
Wow.
it, which didn't make any sense at all at the time. I think that they interviewed Liz Lyle. I wasn't aware that she had interviewed before I interviewed,
Mhm.
and she's older and more mature than a 23-year-old. And
Mhm.
she thought, we've only had student teaching. We've just started this. It doesn't make sense for someone in our position to take on this role. Well, it was a week before school started and I didn't have a job. And so I said, and we had a lot of practice at what we did.
Yes.
We were steeped in it for, that period of time.
Yeah.
So I certainly was qualified in that sense to give them this very narrow thing. I mean, it's a narrow piece of what's going to happen in school.
Mm.
And the teachers that I was supposed to train, some of them had 30 years of experience.
Mhm.
Um, to come in at 23 so it's very interesting. I don't know if anyone has talked about the different ways of implementation. It's always a big discussion.
Mm.
If you are going to implement something wholesale across a grade level, make it
Yeah.
mandatory.
Mm.
Um, that's not something that
Yeah.
goes over well with any curriculum.
That's right.
Um, and so I learned a lot. It was
So
very
was there resistance from the teachers?
a lot of resistance, not because they didn't think philosophy for children was something worthwhile,
Mhm.
but to devote 3 half hours a week to Pixie when, since I was a classroom teacher after
Mm.
that period of time, I thought, wow, of
Yeah.
course, they
Yeah.
have all the same requirements,
Mhm.
what they have to do and get done during the day and the week.
Right.
My hope was to just be the traveling philosophy teacher. I wanted to
Mhm.
just come in and go to those 30 classes a week, and that would have been a very wonderful job to have. That is not the vision that the school district had.
Mhm.
So I kind of developed a relationship with some teachers who were very adamant that they didn't want to do it and were actually sabotaging.
Mhm.
If you have a bad attitude and you slam the book on the desk and say we're about nothing's going to happen. So I would teach for those teachers, and teachers who were open to learning, I would teach with them.
Mhm.
And teachers, the handful of teachers who had a really good philosophical sensibility were
Mm.
able to be on their own a lot more.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there were a lot of people who were converted to loving it, of course,
Mm.
when they saw what came out of the kids. Especially, you'd hear from teachers that, we were doing social studies and a child would say, oh, we're doing Pixie, because they had really good questions and they were
Yeah.
they were thinking. I will tell you one anecdote because I think it encapsulates why we do philosophy for children and what brings people and makes them
Mm.
have it as a mission. It's a fourth grade class, and it was at the beginning of my first year there. I had been maybe 3 times to the class, and we were doing the methodology of sitting in the circle and reading from the book, which is primarily how we began our discussions, but not the only way that people do it now. Anyway, this little girl had her arms folded. She had a very tight expression on her face. She did not like what was going on at all. And all of a sudden, on the fourth session, I saw her lean forward in her chair. I saw her body posture change. She's looking back and forth. She still didn't say anything. I may have used that as a cue to bring her in later. But anyway, I left and I found a note in my mailbox the next day. And it said, Dear Ms. Strohecker, I liked Pixie today because I disagreed with myself.
Wow.
I can't imagine. And that's a 9-year-old child
Yeah.
who not only realized that's what was happening. I was
Mhm.
agreeing with myself. She was able to put that into words,
Yeah.
realize it, decide that she actually liked that feeling
Yeah. Yeah.
and communicate that to me in that little sentence.
That's amazing.
So anyway, I just had to share that because
Love that story.
that's what kept me going on days where teachers were getting in the way, or it was clear that it hadn't happened since the
Mm.
last time I had come, and so on. And I won't, and it's not the fault of anyone, it's just how it
Yeah,
is in
yeah, yeah.
busy school systems. All of that said, there were still very good gains on the pre and post tests.
Oh,
So,
they were testing in there.
oh yeah.
Okay.
So there's an article in one of the thinking magazines where the
Mhm.
results from that,
Okay.
it was Virginia Shipman,
Yes.
I think, at ETS. So no, so there were gains being made, and there are several phenomenal teachers who really said it changed their lives.
Mm.
And that's what Philosophy for Children does. There are also a lot of media. So
Oh,
because
yeah.
this superintendent was all about his own accomplishments, and the only thing he had done was get this grant,
Mm.
he was constantly asking people to come in. So the New York Times did an education article. We had PBS come in, and it was very disruptive
Mhm.
I mean, as you know, when you have a big crowd watching, because
Yeah.
sometimes there would be six superintendents in suits who would come in and
Uh,
watch a class. The kids aren't doing what they do. They're looking over their shoulders. They're saying, "Who is that?" But it was very interesting. There was um there was a TV, I think it was PBS or Channel 13. Is that something in New
yeah,
York?
yeah.
Channel 13 came
That's the
in,
public television. Hmm.
and the person they were supposed to watch had to have surgery. And so they ended up coming into a class of probably the teacher who was least able to do philosophy for children, and there was nothing I
Uh,
could do about it. So I was sitting next to him, and she's got a
mm,
top hat on and doing all kinds of creative
mm.
look at me things. And he leans over and says, I've done a lot of research about Matt Lipman in this program, and she's not really doing this, is she?" And so I was hesitating to say anything because
Yeah.
it might be part of the story, but he recognized, and he
Mm.
said, "That's all right. I'm going to edit her out.
Oh,
And I'm going to show the parts a few minutes ago when they're doing, I can see that because
oh,
the kids
yeah.
had
The
actually
kids.
in spite of her, the
Right.
kids were trying to bring it back to what it was supposed to be. Because
Wow, what a smart guy.
what a smart guy.
Yeah.
That didn't end up airing because of Granada, and
Uh-huh.
Ronald Reagan went in that time
Mm,
slot.
mm. Yeah.
Which was very disappointing to that teacher. So
Yeah.
this is kind of a ramble. You don't need that. So the long and short of it is there was so much media calling all the
Mm,
time that I just turned them away because one
mm.
day we were talking about lying, and I had promised the kids the week before, because so many people looked at that class happened to be at a time when a lot of people, in a location that a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
would visit, and a
Right.
principal who wanted them to. And I had promised them the week before that no one was going to come in the class. Well, as
Mhm.
you know, the school psychologist will sometimes slip in with a
Mm,
book, which
mm,
happened in the middle of a discussion about lying.
mm.
And anyway, it was actually, we couldn't have staged that better because
Yeah,
we had a
right.
much more fruitful discussion about whether their teacher and I had lied.
Yeah.
Anyway, the overall experience with Lynbrook was positive, and it was positive for the kids.
Mm,
But it's challenging. It's a challenging model to
right.
have.
No, yeah, I
So
know.
there's only so much, and the
Yeah.
teachers were forced to come to my workshops after school.
Mm,
Um, you know, that's
mhm,
and teachers do want to have staff development. They just
mhm.
have a lot to do back in their classroom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and they want some choice, some voice in what they're getting.
Yeah. Exactly. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I can say about Lynbrook. Catherine, I don't know if you know Catherine McCall from
Yes.
Scotland. So she ended up moving into that job in Lynbrook
Hmm.
when I left.
Okay.
Um,
How long were you there?
I was there from the fall of 82 until the spring of 86.
Okay.
So she came in, and then I went back to grad school for philosophy of science,
Hmm.
thinking that I didn't have enough philosophy to do right by the kids. I
Really?
think,
That was your motivation?
yeah,
Ah.
yeah, I was feeling like that was an area where I wasn't they were knocking on doors and I wasn't opening them
Wow.
enough. And that was an eye opener in itself. There is an issue somewhere of thinking,
Hmm.
which is written all kinds of articles gathered by women in philosophy
Yes.
talking about the phenomenon that I experienced going back to
Uh,
graduate school as the
oh.
only woman, and coming from the contrast between really doing philosophy, which
Mhm.
is what happens. Children really do philosophy.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes academics are all about performing
Yeah.
and seeing who can be smarter
Hmm.
in the room. Um, I was told our graduate class in philosophy of science was told that our mission was to do a good jugular vein attack on an argument and to get our fists bloody in
Oh my
seminar.
goodness.
And I objected again and again, saying that's not what I see. So I did not stay to finish that graduate program. I stayed for 2 years, which is
Mm.
crazy, and I learned a lot, mostly
Mhm.
about um, yeah, mostly about what philosophy should be. I mean, the openness and the goal of actually having community is just not there
Right.
at the academic level, and
Yeah.
they were cruel to each other.
Mm.
I watched professors, they would have an invited guest speaker, someone's giving a paper, and they are sitting in wait for the moment when they can pull a card out and
Wow.
watch it all fall.
Wow.
And maybe that was just one university, but there was a
Mhm.
lot of competition among them. I'm not,
Mhm. Mhm.
this has
No, I
nothing to
think,
do with philosophy, except that it's quite a contrast. What we're doing with
uh,
children is really
yeah,
philosophy.
I can't tell you how many people have said that when they come to Mendham and this is what I wanted philosophy to be. This reminds me of why I was interested in the first place. This is not the way it happens in academia. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hear it all the time.
So I had moved back to Maryland.
Hmm.
I'm from Maryland. I had moved back to Maryland, and then going on from graduate school, the subject I could find in public schools to teach that allowed me to do philosophy was science, because
Wow.
at the time, in our county school system, they pioneered magnet programs long before other people had them. And there was a science, math, and technology elementary school that needed a science teacher. I did a lot of discussions. We did a lot of reasoning. We did a lot of talking
Yeah.
about what's a scientific question. All my principal would often come in and have a screwy look on her face, but she saw that the kids were engaged and we were doing experiments. And
Mm. Mm.
but there was a lot of freedom. There wasn't testing, state testing and
I see.
national testing in
Right.
science. So we could do discovery and invention, and you know, we could explore ideas. And sometimes the hook was an experiment or a discrepant event.
Mm.
So anyway, so I went into teaching science. Then years later, I did do philosophy for children in a public school when No Child Left Behind started and everybody stopped doing science and they stopped doing social studies.
Yeah.
And there was money for reading support because
Yeah.
we're doing reading and math all day because Prince George's County is an urban school system and
Mhm.
we have 22 high schools
Mm.
and 150,000 students compared to Totowa
Yeah.
having and also Lynbrook had three elementary schools, two middle and one high school, so they could implement philosophy for children.
Yeah.
You could get all the third grade teachers around one table,
Yeah.
talk about what you're going to do this year.
Right.
That
Right.
that can't happen on the scale. But anyway, because there was money for reading support, and I was home with a baby, the principal knew me, and she said, "This is when you get to do philosophy." So I would take half of the group out to do philosophy, but they got to use the money for direct reading instruction because those other kids were getting direct instruction
Oh, interesting.
more times during the day. So that's the only other
And
time I was
what grade were you working with?
third grade.
Third grade. Nice.
Yeah,
Wow. And how long did that last?
that was just for that year
Okay.
because that was special money she was able to get.
Mm, I see.
And anyway, um, so yeah, so are there any other
Well, when did you go to Mendham and why?
the first time?
Yeah, because that was was that after your master's program?
Yeah, the whole time that I was in Lynbrook, because I was so close to New
Hmm.
Jersey, I came over to the Institute a lot. I
Okay.
came for the January session. The January session wasn't in Mendham then.
Hmm.
Trying to remember where it was, and it wasn't on campus.
Hmm.
Anyway, I came over at least for the weekend when they had winter things, and I came in the summertime, and then I was hired in the summer
Hmm.
to be one of the coaches
Oh, great.
um,
Yeah.
a couple of those years. I think that was 1984 and 1985. Um, and as I mentioned before, Eugenio came the year after our class, so we were very involved with them. Liz Lyle was also local. She was teaching at the Ethical Culture School in
Hmm.
New York City.
Hmm.
She was teaching ethics.
Hmm.
So she and I, and Richard was local in New Jersey. So we were involved a lot um, and driving people places too, because, you know,
Yeah.
people came from other countries.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so Mendham, I think I might have attended a couple times even after I went back to graduate school. So
The the philosophy for children courses at uh, for your master's degree. I assume Matt taught some and Ann taught some, and then some of did the other visiting professors teach some?
yeah, so Matt and Anne and Fred um,
Good.
taught in the summer.
Hmm.
And then we had, of course, and Phil would teach a session sometimes.
Okay.
As far as the other classes on campus, we had regular education
Right.
classes for our certification.
Right.
And that was very interesting and it must have evolved, but this was the very first year.
Hmm.
Um, we had classes in philosophy for children that had titles that, you know, they were legitimately methods classes,
Hmm.
but they didn't use the same jargon as the methods classes. However, we got observed and graded by the education department. So I
Oh,
remember
really? In
my
the
very
schools?
yeah, in
Ah.
yeah, from Montclair.
Hmm.
So the first time I had an observation, the lesson went well, but my written lesson plan did not have the jargon that it was supposed to have
Right.
because I'd never been introduced to it. So, I mean, that was the first year. There are always
Yeah.
some kinks in a new program. You know, how do we have this very different thing, but also have people get certified? There had
Right.
to be some kind of bridge
Yeah.
between that. But we had, I think our advanced ed psych class was very good.
Hmm.
We had some good professors on campus. Um, but Eugenio went on to develop some. You already know more about what he's doing in Mexico.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. He's a friend.
And is he still running the program that he was
Yes.
running?
Yeah. He's still running it. He does an annual his version of Amendum in every January down in Chiapas. I've attended that one two or three times. When Ann was alive and lived down there, I would go down and do that. Um, yeah, and he still works. He actually travels a lot in Latin America doing trainings, um, and a lot of people come to his place, to his center, to get training, and then he works with local schools there and with indigenous groups.
Wow. I saw something that he put out a number of years ago. It was a special program for teenagers.
Yes.
So it was some kind of experiential and
Mhm.
philosophical work that they did together. I don't know more about it than that.
Yeah, that's right. They did it was like experiences in nature and experiences with indigenous communities and philosophy. It was like a summer camp with an emphasis on the camping. Philosophical summer camp for teenagers. Yeah.
Well, I had a class in a graduate class at the University of Maryland a couple of years ago. I think it was during COVID, and it was on peace education.
Hmm.
So it was interesting. I chose to do my research on philosophy for children in that
Hmm.
class.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. There were a lot of critiques of philosophy for children and how it's positioned in the world, and I found it to be really interesting to read those papers. Some of it I could understand the perspective it was coming from, but I also had a professor who was in her early 30s, had never taught K-12,
Hmm.
and was saying that 6-year-olds should be, that philosophy for children didn't address racism in the right terms at age 6. I was it was hard to wrap my head around. I mean, it's important to be open to conversations that challenge your position. That's
Of
really,
course.
really important.
Yep.
But it's interesting to see how higher ed um, understands or doesn't understand children.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I've been working with and talking to and writing with a number of people over the last many years who are even philosophy for children insiders who have a lot of critical perspectives about the early work and about ways things were done and mostly with also appreciation for what happened and of
Yeah,
course um, and I agree with a lot of what they're saying and we're finding ways to self-correct as we say. One of the things that a lot of people have pointed out is that the novels do avoid a lot of sensitive issues like religion and sexuality and race and class. Some of that comes up in the MARC program, which is the one for high school. And so
yeah,
meant to go along with social studies courses in high school. But even there, not in a not in a very direct way. So and today, of course, there are, depending on what state you're in, like now in New Jersey, the teachers are mandated to teach about the history of slavery, for example, and the history of the labor movement and all these kinds of things, and have gender and sexuality freely discussed, and have a lot of resources for kids. And of course, in the other half of the country, that's forbidden, completely forbidden. And we do know one person that had talked to Matt about the reason he didn't address religion, and
yeah,
he's getting philosophy into schools is already risky and a big ask.
yeah. Well, when I had to present at school board meeting about philosophy for children and showed a video of the kids that everyone was really interested in, I got those hard questions about
Hmm.
religion every time. What happens
Yeah.
when a child, and it always happens because when you're exploring your deepest beliefs,
Right.
you're going to get into religion. And I
Yep.
don't know if I handled it well at in those early days. My answer to that was always that we bracket that. If your
Mm.
reason is because God said it,
Mm.
we
Uh-huh.
put that over here for a little while. Okay, that's one kind of reason that people give.
Right.
you know,
That's smart.
we, because yeah, the same thing. We already have some resistance. We have to be very careful.
Mm.
You do want kids to question that. And as you develop the community of inquiry and as the kids explore who they are, because really they become who they are
Yeah.
by doing philosophy,
Yeah.
um, they're going to ask those questions of themselves anyway,
Hmm.
right? And it's going to come up, it's going to be brought up in different ways
Yeah.
in the dialogue. One of the things that was really a gift to teach all the kids in a school system in grade 3 through 7, and I stayed there for 4 years.
Mhm.
So we could be having a discussion in grade 6, and I could remember what you said in third grade,
Oh, wow.
friendship, and say, "Oh, and how do you still think?
Yeah.
What do you think about?"
Wow, that's amazing.
that was really interesting because, I only had 1,000 kids.
Only.
No, I mean, the whole program
Yeah, yeah,
was 1,000 kids. And when
yeah.
you're with them, week after week,
Sure.
this was something we didn't address was the accountability piece back then.
Mm,
And, even in the 4 years that I was in philosophy for children, it evolved. And Matt was open to, addressing questions like that. You often would have a class where there are a handful of kids who are really philosophical and very verbal,
mhm.
and it was very easy to let the discussion be carried by a few people
Right.
because it's fruitful and because they're excited. And other people are engaged even if they're not speaking, but
Mhm.
sometimes they aren't. And developing ways in which you can
Mhm.
engage everyone and
Mhm.
make sure everyone, that's always a challenge.
Yeah.
But so Matt was open to that. One of the things you might want to talk with him about this at some point.
Okay.
So they went to Harlem the next year.
Mhm.
There were a lot of behavior issues and there were gigantic classes. I think we taught in
Mm,
a sixth grade class that had 42 students trying to do philosophy. And the interesting thing was, sixth grade was the oldest grade in elementary school at that time.
mhm.
And sixth grade was basically collecting students that weren't ready to pass to seventh grade. So there were a lot of older students in sixth grade
Mm,
for
I
some
see.
reason.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of them were as big as we were.
Mhm.
Um, it was hard to get the kids to settle down enough to read.
Mhm.
How do you have your springboard if you
Yeah.
can't even have anybody reading? And so Eugenio wanted to use behavior modification in the classroom to get the kids in a position to open the book. And he and Matt had a very spirited debate. Well, Eugenio was very laid back. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was important to him to have an answer. He wanted Matt to address this. Matt said, "Well, that's antithetical to,
Mm,
the, you know, the program itself is the structure, and
interesting.
the motivation comes out of the work and the
Yeah.
he kept saying yes, but if they're not even going to sit down, how can I begin?
What kind of behavior modification was he thinking about, do you know?
I think he was kind of just struggling with what he could use. I don't know that he actually did
Mm. I'll
implement
ask him.
any
Yeah.
behavior mod, but and it'll be interesting to see if he remembers that discussion.
Yeah.
But Matt didn't even want him to explore that.
Mm,
But it was a real problem. How do you begin?
yeah.
Don't have all the students.
Right. Even sitting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one point of
Mhm.
evolution I remember. But
Can you say, do you remember what Matt and Ann were like as teachers? Like what did they have a teaching style? How did they teach?
well, they're very different.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I would have to say it depends on whether you're watching them with children or watching them in seminar
Mhm.
at Mendham or something,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I don't think I ever fully got to see Matt on his own
Mm.
leading, leading a dialogue, because there were always caveats, and we were doing, a meta a meta
Mhm.
view of what's going on.
Right.
But seeing him in videos with children, I could see that I mean, you've seen him with children,
Yeah.
it was very different. Um, and interestingly, and I'm not answering your question because I'm trying to remember as I'm speaking. Interestingly, Anne was very much more focused and precise in leading a discussion
Mhm.
than she was, her persona seemed to be.
Yes, I remember that
Yeah.
about Anne. Yeah.
And she was pretty adamant about a lot of things, which was good. I think she was able to challenge people and keep a thread, to take a
Yeah.
to take a person deeper. But I
Mhm.
think I saw her lead more full discussions than I saw Matt do.
Mm. What about in the master's courses that they taught?
As far as how they taught them,
Yeah.
their methodology. I mean,
Mhm.
having just four of us around a table with them, I mean, often it was, we had done the reading and it was a seminar. It was less formal than other seminars I had in graduate school because we all knew each other so well.
Right.
But we were accountable
Mhm.
for our positions and we did have to, we didn't have a choice but not to engage, not that we wouldn't have. I'm not answering your question very
Oh,
well.
you are, you are. So it was seminar style. You had readings and then you would discuss them together around a table.
Yeah, and also because they were in the middle of developing, like Elfie, I think Elfie was being developed while I was there.
Mm.
Um, there was a lot of sharing of things that were in development.
Mm.
Maybe that was at the end of seminar. I don't think
Yeah,
it's hard for me to separate um,
sure.
what ended up being less formal
Hmm.
exchanges, but it was really exciting to see their process and who they were including because I think there were other collaborators
Hmm.
on the manuals.
Yes.
I know that Fred and Ann and Matt did the Harry one.
Mhm.
I'm not sure with Pixie who else was involved.
Was Anne Gazzard there when you were there?
She was there sometimes at
Okay.
some of but I don't remember her being a presence like for a whole
Mm.
semester. I remember her coming for certain week-long
I
periods.
see.
Was she
Yeah.
in residence after that?
She was for a while, yeah, for a few years.
Okay. Yeah, I lost track of Catherine McCall and in trying to find her, this summer I was looking online. I see that she has been very involved in Europe
Mm.
for many years.
Yes.
So do you know where she is now?
Yeah, she's back in Scotland.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I think she, oh, I shouldn't say, I think she recently retired, but from teaching. But yeah, she wrote several books, some curriculum books in the IPC style. And in fact, I think she wrote her first one when she was here in New Jersey, the Laura and Paul story.
Okay.
Um, and she was using that in a school when the BBC came out and did their documentary in '89. I think that was.
So is that Socrates for 6-year-olds
Yeah,
or something? Okay.
yeah, that's the one.
And I wonder, people who are doing research and have critiques about philosophy for children, the way some of those videos were framed by the media folks that were making them,
Yes.
that's where I would see the problem,
Yes.
not in the,
Yeah, when I use that in my with my students, we talk about that. Like, notice how the media is framing this story, particularly the one in Newark.
yeah,
Very
with
dark.
the sirens going on in the background and everything. It's
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
shame, but
Yeah.
it's if that's all people have as
Hmm.
an introduction. But so I was very excited to be part of the class this summer and also to see the many ways that not just philosophy K to 12, because
Hmm.
it's developed a lot, but philosophy for children, just to see
Mm.
it. I have to say, it was really humbling to see how well Aaron and Ariel could lead a group and engage everyone, especially online. Having taught online, I know how tough that is.
They are particularly talented, those two, I can
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
They're
So,
pretty special.
and it really was very emotional for me
Hmm.
every day to even try to dip into it because I don't have the level of articulation that I had when I was a lot younger, and I don't know that I could. I was happy to have my turn to try to lead a group,
Mhm.
um, but I don't know what it would be like um, to dive back in. So just to tell you what I've been doing the last few years, I've been
Yes,
teaching.
please.
I have a STEM lab and I teach homeschool kids the last
Oh.
15 years because I was in public schools for all those years. And when I turned 50, I was going to have 3 jobs again,
Mm.
full time for one salary in the school system. And I had done that before and been at school 18 hours a day. Like I moved next to the school so I could be there 18 hours a day and work all weekend. And it
Wow.
still was a bottomless pit because kids' needs and you want to keep
Of
doing what
course.
you're doing. Um, so Anyway, that said, when I left public school teaching, there were homeschoolers that I thought that I was going to be doing philosophy for children. I thought this will be an opportunity to,
Mm,
but my classes were multi-age. So
mm.
like what I do, I have ages 8 to 16 in the room at the same
Oh,
time, and we're launching things and we're inventing things and
yeah.
exploding and launching
Mm.
Barbie over the roof and just all kinds of wacky things, which is really gratifying and interesting because it's all driven by their own
Mm,
creativity. It's
mhm,
messy, it's time
mhm,
consuming, and it's interesting. But I try to imagine how I would, because the novel, well, using the novels, it's very age specific because it's all about your experience. For
mm.
example, if I would go into a first grade class in Lynbrook, I didn't teach that grade, but sometimes a teacher would ask me to do something at that level. They hadn't met me before, and it would be an emergency because I have a very crooked tooth. And everyone in the class would have their hands up saying, "You need to go to the nurse. Your tooth is about to fall out." That never happened in any grade except
Oh,
for first grade.
yeah.
And it's because their whole world is teeth falling out left and right,
Right.
which I really loved that. But yeah, I couldn't imagine how I would have the kind of dialogue I was used to having with even more than, a 2-year range, 9 and
Mm,
10-year olds, 11 and 12-year olds.
mm.
And so it's really interesting to me to see the philosophy camps and to see the multi-age
Yeah.
philosophy activities are going on. And I am now at a point where I feel like I could do that. I have 400 students who would love that if I did it. Um, but
You
I
have 400. Wow.
well, I don't teach them all at once,
Right.
but
Yeah,
I
but
have the thing with homeschooling is the same children will come in and out of a class, or they'll take my class 3 times. I
I
teach
see.
things every 3 years. I've had some kids for 7 and 8 years, and I've had
Okay.
their whole family.
Nice.
Um, and I ended up doing homeschool because the space that I could rent was during the day.
Hmm.
And I couldn't, and the after school times were already taken up with other activities in that space. So I would have liked to have done an after school program. It's not that, and I love, children are children, and
Yep.
many people homeschool for very, very different reasons now
Oh, yes. I
before.
know. Yeah.
I have to say that most of my students are refugees from the public school special ed system.
Mm,
And as we said before with the model in Lynbrook, that particular teaching model is nobody's fault. It's you're doing the best you can trying to implement something.
yeah.
Special education, it's no one's fault what's happening. I mean, the special ed teachers went into that because they want to serve kids with all
Mm,
kinds of needs and they love children and they can't do their job because they have to write a document this thick on each child, and it's not the parents' fault. They're trying to do right by their children, and it's not the administrator's fault. They're trying to use the resources that they
mhm,
have in some way. So sometimes it just doesn't work, and people pull their kids out and try to do something else. So there's no blame there. I've been on all sides of that.
yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
I have children too, and I know that they had needs that weren't being met, but I believed in public school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
it's been really interesting to see one of the discussions that would come up often. We're talking about freedom in Lynbrook Public Schools. We had a lot of El Salvadorian refugees
Mhm.
at one of our schools, um, and in a discussion about freedom. And the kids had all these different points of view of what it means to be free. And a child spoke up and said, "You don't know what freedom is. Being at school, none of you are free. Freedom is running barefoot through the field." When I, talking about how he had grown up. But
Mm,
I imagine, dealing with homeschoolers who have so much freedom, like the discussions which are very different based on context. So you're coming into a public school to do philosophy for children in Lynbrook, and it's
mm,
their favorite time of the day or the week because it's the one time they can be themselves and not be evaluated. It's the one time they can be themselves and,
mm.
not be told the right way to do it or,
Yeah.
for a multitude of reasons. But in that context, it becomes a safe space, a warm space, a very different thing than um, for a homeschooled child who already has so much freedom,
Mhm.
their take on a lot of issues would be very different.
Mhm. Interesting.
Also, the community won't show up every day. That's another
Right.
thing about being homeschooled.
Right.
If it's raining today
See.
and there's a backup on the Beltway, because I'm in
Huh?
DC
Uh-huh.
area, I don't know who's going to show up. So how do you keep your community going if they're coming once a week?
Right.
They've skipped a week.
Right.
But in public school, you already have a setting where that time is going to happen and everybody is going to be there.
Mhm.
So those are things that I never thought about
Mm.
years ago in doing philosophy. So ongoing, I am really interested to connect with people who do multi-age and
Yeah.
informal setting um, groups.
I know there have been some programs in some places where they bring young children into retirement centers to do philosophy.
Oh,
You're like
interesting.
a retiree and a child, a retiree and a child in a circle, like, and then they do it.
That's really, really interesting. I
Yeah.
was just emailing with Liz Lyle the last couple of days, and we do caregiving for our 95-year-old parents. My dad
Mm.
just passed away, and my mom
I'm
over
sorry.
there most of the time. And
Yeah.
for the first time at 95, now that she's not able to, she lost her singing voice. Well,
Mm.
who is she if she
Mhm.
can't sing?
Mm.
And every day was singing in four-part harmony with her siblings. The
Wow.
siblings are gone. Like there's so many questions for seniors
Yeah. I
about
agree.
identity.
Yeah.
You know, who could you possibly be? But it is interesting. So I would love to see or connect with whoever does that, because my superintendent in Lynbrook used to come into the middle of discussions with his cigar and say, everyone has a right to their opinion. Puff, puff, but I have a right to the truth. I mean, he was the one who brought philosophy for children in, but it would really irritate him if someone didn't say what the answer should be.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, or his answer,
Yeah.
because he
Right.
was more enlightened. I mean, he was a very interesting character. I'm, not,
Sounds like it. Wow.
but there are a lot of adults I can imagine with seniors paired with kids.
Hmm.
A lot of seniors might have to do some work to not impart
Yeah.
wisdom
Yeah.
or pull rank.
Before, right. Yeah. Yeah. There'd have to be a good, like an Aaron or Ariel talent facilitator pull that off.
Well, and again, it also depends on what you're using as your springboard or your
Hmm.
right, because if
Yeah.
there's something that everyone can relate to from different ages, then so mostly that's my interest. That's not your project at the moment, but my interest in reconnecting is just to see how people do this
Yeah.
in different settings, because I love the novel. Pixie, I think, is just magical.
Hmm.
I think it really is. I mean, and I haven't kept up with the later work that was done beyond Elfie.
No, Pixie's pretty special.
Yeah, it's pretty special. The things that happen, Matt really has the voice of a child
Hmm.
in Pixie,
Yeah.
and so I am just taking your time now, I feel like, because
No, this is delightful. This is really delightful. I would really be interested in seeing what documents you have. So let's see if we can work some way to work that out.
I do come up to New York semi-frequently. I mean, every couple of
Hmm.
months. I
Oh
have
yeah? Okay.
cousins in Manhattan, and of course I lived on Long Island when I taught in Lynbrook,
Okay.
so I have a
Right.
lot of friends there
Oh, okay.
still. So I'd be happy to bring something. I mean, I can send some. It's interesting. Years ago, when I pared things down, I saved one copy of each thing, and obviously, it's worth more to you than it is to me at this point. But I'll see what else I can dig out. There are definitely articles that I clipped
Oh, wonderful.
that
Yeah.
are not archived anywhere.
Yeah. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to know that you continue to carry the torch and develop things. And also, I think it's amazing how you've connected with the broader K-12 philosophy community.
Mm.
because philosophy for children is its own special thing. And
Hmm.
I think if not for P4C, we wouldn't see K-12
I
philosophy.
think that's right. Yeah. In this country, especially. Yeah.
But Matt was, Gareth Matthews, was writing all of those pieces and thinking. And in the workshops I did with teachers, I had them, bring literature in that they were
Nice.
using in their classroom because you have to find something they're already doing
Yes.
that can be a springboard. So I think, Matt was open at the very beginning to a blend of ways.
He was. Yeah, he was. Um, and he knew that even people using their program had different ways of doing it. And he was pretty happy with that too. Um, he, uh, when I took over directing and I started, traveling and sort of, being the face of the IPC, I quickly realized that some people had the impression that we thought that we were the only way you should be doing this, and that we would look down on anybody who did things differently. And I was really trying to reassure people, no, we just want to learn from each other. We have a way we do things, and we want to learn what other people are doing and share. And that's and that really that's what Matt and Ann believed.
Oh, it truly was because I also in Lynbrook, the last year that I was there, they were trying to find a way that philosophy could happen in a middle school schedule, and they had
Mm,
some sort of modular thing they were working on, and they
mm,
wanted me to do philosophy for a whole month and then nothing, and then every day for a
interesting.
month and then nothing, and
Interesting.
and although that could work in some ways, I was arguing back that you need the time in between to
Mm,
grow.
mm,
Having a discussion a couple times a week is sometimes better than
yeah.
forcing one every day in a
Yeah.
row. You know,
Right.
during that year, they wanted me to teach great books. So they sent me for training in great books, which is a very
Really?
different methodology. And
Yeah.
it's supposed to combine the two.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they called the program in middle school Great Thinking.
And did you do that?
I did. It wasn't Matt and Ann's favorite idea, and it wasn't my favorite idea, but we made it work.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting to see the methodology that they were teaching people in
Mm,
great books.
hmm. What
I
would you say? I'm really interested. What would you say would be the biggest differences in the great book approach? Because they're like it's discussion around a text, right?
Yeah,
That much in common at least, and there's big ideas coming out of the books. There's that in common.
yeah. And you know what? I only did it for that one year, and I don't know if Great Books has evolved since then either, but there was a lot of there was working in a circle, there was connecting different ideas from different, connecting ideas of different people. And I don't know if the trainer that I had their own way of doing it either. She was doing something with strings from one person to another,
Oh,
which
interesting.
was kind of interesting. Um, what I found most important in my work in philosophy for children, which they weren't doing, and that doesn't mean everybody did this in philosophy for children, but the board work was really mapping a discussion was so important for me in
Hmm.
my methodology. Um, it really helped me to keep track of what was going on and different points of view, and having, Matt always had us put the child's name and sometimes the page reference number from Pixie,
Yeah.
page two, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of work that way, and it took a while for me to learn how to do it in a way that didn't slow down discussion,
Hmm.
didn't stop the flow,
Hmm.
but a way that enabled everybody to visualize what was going on. And then after a while, I had kids come up and change things on the board or
Yeah.
make different connections.
Yeah.
I'm not answering your question about what's different between the two programs because I'm not really remembering what I was taught besides the strings going back and forth. I ended up having to modify it anyway to be
Sure.
a
Yeah.
combination of,
Right. Right. Right.
so using some of their sources, but more the methodology I was familiar.
Hmm. Well, I'm now really interested in. I don't want to keep you too long, but the mapping idea, because that's something that's come up a lot, and there was never, at least since I have been around, there was never like an IAPC approach to mapping a philosophy discussion. And so, is that something that you talked about in your master's program, or did you develop that on your own?
I didn't develop it on my own, but we had enough different models that,
Hmm.
I think that every one of our models did some kind of board work. It might have been for the initial gathering of questions. It might have been, you know, just to group some basic ideas. So some did more than others. I mean, I know that Phil would do it, but maybe not to the extent that Fred would.
Hmm.
Um, but
Could you just describe yours just briefly? Like,
well,
how do you map?
I found it very important to group ideas. So there was a racing going on too. And
Sure.
with the advice of children. Can I
Nice.
can I put this over here? Or what
Right.
should I do with this? Or how
Yeah.
should I connect that? I'm
No.
not saying I was great at it anymore. I'm great at it. Um, I think it just the whole project is humbling. It is really
Hmm.
humbling because you know what it can be, and you know the moments when it is what you
Hmm.
know it can be, and
Yeah.
the other times when it's not getting there. But I just find the board work helped because the different ideas, if we had three clear positions that we're developing, they were there on the board.
Right.
And then if there was a way of putting an arrow saying a difference between the two or a similarity between the two, the kids could help me do that.
Hmm.
Then that helped me because I didn't really have the kind of closure that I wanted to have all the time,
Right.
having only a half an hour with
Yeah,
kids
that's another challenge.
or trying to piggyback. Gosh, I really wish I had a smartphone back then because taking a picture of the board is
Yeah.
so important to me in what I do now.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
the next time you're with kids, you have a sense.
Hmm.
Sometimes you recreate that so everybody can see that
Hmm.
visual. And other times you just know, how to take off from that. I ended up when I did philosophy in the reading program, I
Hmm.
had one of those flip pads
Oh, yeah.
because then I would bring it back the next week
Right.
and the work that we did was there.
Mhm.
Um, I'd like to say I was an expert at mapping. No, it was something that was evolving. It was as much a help for me as it was for them. But
Yeah, I think that's important.
yeah, if it was going to take you too far from the circle, if it was going to make you turn your back too long,
Mhm.
you want the flow, you definitely want the flow to
Right.
happen as much. So I did, it's interesting, cooperative learning was something I wasn't trained in until I became a classroom teacher, maybe 5 years later.
Uh-huh.
And I thought about how many of those techniques would have been wonderful to use in philosophy for children.
Mm.
Not the least of which is think, pair, share. I mean, to be
Right.
able to turn to someone, and
Right.
I think one of the reasons when Matt or Phil or somebody was challenged by an educator of why are you having the kids read out loud?
Mhm.
Because of course reading out loud is very traumatic almost for some people and kids, and they said kids are allowed to pass and all of that, but one of the reasons for having them do it was to hear your voice in the space. My
Yeah.
voice has been in the space already. You've broken the ice for yourself.
Right.
I've already said something, people have already heard me.
Mhm.
So that whole idea of turning to a partner and in a quiet way, um, discussing a question and then coming back, which was great on Zoom,
Yes.
because at least we could
Yeah.
go to breakout rooms and then come back. Um, I am just
Yeah.
rambling in all directions now.
Oh, this is so enjoyable. I do the same in my college classes now. I think more and more, like just the last several years, my undergraduates are more and more reticent to speak in class. It's getting really difficult, in fact. And they will just say, I don't want people judging me. I don't want to. I'm sure it's from their social media experiences.
Yeah,
But and it's a philosophy of education class. So while, I always have them, I always try to remember to discuss like either turn to the person next to you in a small group and just talk about this for 5 minutes and see what you come up with. And they have no problem.
yeah,
The room gets very loud. There's a lot of energy. A lot of people are talking. A lot of ideas are coming out. Or if I'll just say we're going to go around the room once, and you get to say one sentence about what you think about this. And when it's their turn, they do. But if I just say, "What do you think?" There's three people that always have something to say,
Yeah.
but and then why, we talk about that. So, as a teacher, I need to remember that it's easier for you to talk in small groups. So if my point is to get you to talk and think and share, then there are strategies I need to use. I need to be aware of that. Like, in other words, it's not your fault. I'm not, don't. It's on me.
Yeah. Well, and they appreciate that, especially you're modeling when you're teaching a philosophy of education class. You're also modeling. Well, I mean, and I think, the things like four corners and the line and all of that, where
Yes.
they're placing their body. So
Yeah, I like that too.
for kids who don't want to say anything, they can
Right.
literally take a stand
Exactly.
and change your mind. You can move.
Yeah.
But getting back to our first trainings, what I was really uncomfortable with at first, which was really phenomenal though, as a methodology, was the amount of wait time.
Mm,
The amount of wait time that Matt was comfortable with, that Phil was comfortable with children, and it was productive. It
yeah.
was something that, general education didn't catch up to that for a long time.
True. Yeah.
And having experienced that whole
Mm,
Quaker methodology of
mm,
just being present with each other, if you've created the right atmosphere,
mhm.
your students and my students now with social media and everything, they're worried about being judged. If you've already created an atmosphere where there isn't judgment, where they are safe,
Yeah.
that wait time can be really productive. So that's we're talking about the other direction where you don't want to put them in that position.
Yeah.
But that was a
No,
real eye opener for me in watching
yeah.
it. I was almost embarrassed the first couple of times, like, oh my gosh, he's still not saying anything. You know what I mean? No, because what did I know?
That's great. Yeah, I talk about silence. I invite my students that I said there's going to be long moments of silence in this class, and you're invited to just enjoy that and not. I'm not doing it to manipulate you to hurry and say something to fill up the empty space. It's a contemplative moment. Take a breath, think, reflect.
Well, I think that that's just brilliant. I mean, to be able to frame that at the beginning,
Mm.
that makes all the difference in the world. And I think,
I think so. Well, I remember when that occurred to me because I do long silences and then people start to giggle and look around and like something's. So then I realized I need to explain what's going on and
yeah.
yeah, and then they're okay with it.
Well, I really am sad over the years when I realized we had such great videos in Lynbrook of the kids
Mm,
in dialogue.
yeah.
And it was low tech back then. And
Oh
I
yeah.
to ask someone to come with a camera, and then it had to go back over to the high school and it was put on a shelf with a label. And then I had
Yes.
to do editing with two machines, like recording from one to the other. Anyway, there was one spring where they had interns and they copied over all of the all of the
That's a shame. Yeah, that's a shame.
but anyway, because we had those videos, I remember those moments more because
Mm,
um,
sure. Yeah.
but it is very helpful to have kids see videos of
Mm,
themselves. It's interesting during COVID.
mm,
I don't know if you used Flipgrid at all or
mm,
had people express themselves on that. Kids could take the time to make a video of themselves with, and it usually was with something they invented. So
oh, nice.
it's a
Yeah.
little bit easier.
Yeah.
But I don't know, did you do philosophy online during COVID? Is that something that you,
Yeah, we did one workshop. Um, this was, I think, it may have been what instigated Ariel and Aaron's, because Ariel was part of that. We did an IPC, philosophy for children training workshop online, and there was that one year, all of my university courses went online, um, and so I did a combination of Zoom and chat. I do a lot in the chat room. I do a lot of teaching in a chat room, actually,
you
because
know,
when there's no microphone and there's no camera and they're just texting in a chat room, again, the words just explode. The volume of words that come out of students is just in torrents.
Oh, and that's what they're used to doing. A
Exactly.
model minute.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I would have to be looking over at trying to figure
It's
out
a
what.
little crazy at times, but then we just deal with that, and then we talk about, as an educational experience, what's the value of this versus when we're in class and only one person can speak at a time and it's very structured and slower. What's that good for and what's this good for and that kind of thing.
Well, I have talked your ear off and and I'm sorry I have to think
Oh,
while
that's all right.
I don't remember
That's,
everything, but
that's what that's how these interviews go. I really appreciate it,
I
Margie.
will gather what I have, and I've been in touch with Liz, and I think that she'll reach out to you at
Oh, I
some
hope so.
point.
Thank you.
Liz is just the most phenomenal person, and just the sensibility that she has about and what she does for a living now. She runs a group online. She does outside to inside. It's psychology, but she went on to study with the Institute um, in California. She got her PhD afterwards. And wait, what is it? The Power of Myth. Who's the person?
Campbell?
Yes, Joseph Campbell Institute. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So she does some phenomenal things, and the ability she has to be present in the moment
Hmm.
and to listen and have such clarity to
Hmm.
bring a question out of you that you didn't even know that you had. I think
Nice.
she's the person you need to talk to about.
Well, I look forward to talking to her. Thank you. And I look forward to meeting you in person maybe sometime when you come
Yeah,
drive this way.
that'd be nice. So I'll be in touch with resources, and if you happen to know of anything that's happening that I could participate remotely in, or if there's any video that exists of someone doing a multi-age
Okay,
interaction,
yeah, let me see what I can find.
would be of interest to me.
Okay, I surely will.
Thank you so much, Mon.
Thanks, Margie. Great to meet you.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Thanks.